You're listening to The Featured Voice, a podcast summer series on the Audio Flow with Jacques.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 10 of The Featured Voice. I'm your host, Jacques, and I'm excited to be here as we are closing in on the end of the first series of The Featured Voice. I could not be more humbler or excited that we've come to this point. I hope that all of the listeners have enjoyed this series, that you've had a chance to check out some of the great narrators featured here, visited their libraries, downloaded a few of their books, followed them on Twitter, gave them a like on Facebook. I hope you've had a chance to do that. And if you're an author, I hope that you've had a chance to check out their demos and possibly consider some of them for your upcoming projects. This week, I have an opportunity to speak with someone that I had a chance to meet in a group called Audiobook Lovers, which again, I mentioned before, I found a lot of great people in there. I think most of the persons on this series I met through that group. So if you've not joined it, I recommend that you go and check it out, where you can also connect with other narrators, authors, and listeners. So be sure, again, go and check out Audiobook Lovers. But this week, I have a chance to chat with someone I met in the group. She was very excited about jumping on board and participating in the Featured Voice. And so now you guys will have an opportunity to meet her as well. So please, let's welcome Lee Ann Howlett. Hi, Lee Ann. How's it going?
Just great, Jock. How's it going with you?
Everything's going well. Thank you so much for being a part of the Featured Voice. I'm very honored to have you participate in this particular series.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm good. It seems like the Featured Voice has been doing very well, and I love that I've had a chance to meet new voiceover actors, actresses, performers, and narrators. And so I always like to usually start a little bit about learning a little bit about Lee Ann. So Lee Ann, what's your journey been like getting to this point where now you are successfully an audiobook narrator?
Well, actually, I was originally a university medical librarian for over 30 years. But in 2007, I started volunteering for LibriVox.org. That's where they record items in the public domain, and everybody's a volunteer. And we release the finished recordings into the public domain, of course, and they're free for people to listen to. The classics, basically, that's what a lot of it is. And when I got ready to retire from being a librarian, by that time I'd been recording on LibriVox for about 3 years. And I was lucky enough because I thought, I might want to give this a whirl because I really, really enjoyed it. It was a lot of work, but I really enjoyed it. So I got on with a small publisher called Iambic, which coincidentally was founded by the same man, Hugh McGuire, who founded LibriVox. And from there, we worked on books from like small publishers, small independent publishers. And then I got onto ACX and also listened to a book and just went from there. Just began auditioning and went from there.
And so how long ago was that?
Well, I started professionally actually January of 2011.
Okay. Yeah, so you've been in almost 7 years then.
Yeah. And along the way, I've taken classes for coaching. I've also taken quite a few workshops. I joined the APA, that's the Audio Publishers Association. The last 2 years, including this past May, I attended their yearly convention. It's a conference, rather. It's called APEC. It was in New York this year, Chicago the previous year. And those are really good. My latest one was we were able to get Johnny Heller to come down here to Tampa, where I live, and a number of Florida narrators attended that workshop and got a lot of great one-on-one work with Johnny. So, yeah, it's always learning.
That sounds really fun. Now, I was at the Audis this year, and I wish I had known that you were going to be there because I would have tried to catch up with you. So
yeah, Well, I didn't attend the Audis
Okay.
themselves. I didn't actually attend the Audis. I was at the Audio Publishers Association conference, which was
Right.
the day before. That was an all-day thing before the Audis. And I also, Johnny Heller did a workshop there, and I also attended that. And then I attended the night of the Audis. They have a little thing at a local bar called
The naughties.
The
I was
Naughties.
there. I was there.
Oh no! Oh, I missed. Well, if you came after the Audis, I think I had just left. I was with my proof listener there, and I think we
Okay.
had just left because we were both really tired.
You
And
can't get tired
I
after the Audis.
know
You're supposed to
every.
stay up and eat pizza like at 5 o'clock in the morning because
I
that's what they made
know.
me do.
I know. We were both dead on our feet. Everybody says you sleep after APEC.
Exactly. But what I love about the APA and that whole weekend, I got there on I believe Wednesday. Let's see, Wednesday because the Audis were Thursday, and
Yeah.
I signed up late, so that's why I wasn't at APEC, but I'll be there next year for the conference.
Oh,
Um,
great.
but I got there and they had this nice little meet and greet at the hotel, and so I got a chance, and it's I come from the book industry, ebooks, paperbacks, and all that, and I
Sure.
got to see this other side of the industry and the I guess the camaraderie and how everyone is just really supportive of each other, and you guys have your own little community, and it was just absolutely amazing just to be a part of that whole event and that networking. And I really hate that I didn't get to meet you then, but you're in
Oh, I know.
Florida. You're in
Yes, I'm
Florida,
in
right?
Florida. I'm in
Okay.
Tampa.
Okay, so I do take trips to Florida pretty frequently because it's Florida, and and who doesn't want to take frequent trips to Florida?
Well, if you're
Um,
here all year, it can get pretty old.
well, I said, frequent trips is a little bit different than living there, of course.
Right.
So next time I get out that way, I have to come by and visit.
Oh, yeah. Let me know. Let me
Yeah,
know.
it sounds good. Okay, so you've been in this industry a little over 6 years, almost 7 years, and so can you kind of think of some things that you've learned along the way that you could share with someone who may be new in the industry? Some things that maybe you didn't know at the beginning and you know now, and it's like, hey, this is the advice I would give somebody that would just be coming into it.
Oh, absolutely. Sounds like you've got a train going back there.
I always have a train. That's a good thing. That's kind of like my superstitions for this is a great podcast. So just
Oh,
know your podcast has been blessed by the train.
okay. I'll take that as a good sign. Well, one of the things I would recommend if somebody wanted to get into this is start out by volunteering. As we say, particularly audiobooks, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a learning curve, which goes on really forever, the learning curve, but particularly when you're starting out. It's good to get into something where, you're volunteering, you can make mistakes. And the volunteer communities, and LibriVox is a good example of that. They're really good about helping other people out. You can volunteer to record, or if you're a little shy at first, you can volunteer and just proof listen. But that's what I would recommend, even if it was reading for the blind, if it's something local, like reading, some local radio stations have people come in and read, do something like that, just sort of get your feet wet. And because, you may not like it at all. Particularly when it comes to doing, we have people who they do audiobooks, but they also do like a lot of voiceover work, like commercials, things like that, which pay a lot better. but at the same time, they're very different. Audiobooks, it's a whole different animal. So, and the other thing is, look into classes, definitely. There are some really good coaches out there that you can start with beginners, and some of them are even online where you take the lesson, you send your recording in to the coach. They critique it, and they send it back to you with suggestions. Pat Fraley is one. I know you can sign up through Edge Studios with Johnny for one-on-one, Johnny Heller for one-on-one, but there are a number of really good coaches out there. And but that would be my recommendation, is to, sort of just get your feet wet a little with some volunteering first, because and you can volunteer for very long books, by the way, too, on LibriVox. My longest one on there and it was a solo. I did Henry James's The Golden Bowl. That was over 16 hours long.
Wow.
So that was the finished audio. Obviously, you make mistakes, whatever, so you're doing a lot of editing, and but that would be my recommendation. There's a really good video, and I can't think now. I don't have the website for it at the moment, but it's on YouTube, and I believe it's Sean Allen Pratt, who's another really good coach. He actually has a YouTube video up that's free for people to watch, do you want to be an audiobook narrator? And it gives you these ideas of, okay, try sitting, in this enclosed space, and reading for a certain amount of time. And I know in my case, in my little home studio, I've converted a walk-in closet, and I have to turn the air off when I'm in there.
Yeah.
Because the mic picks up everything. So it gets pretty hot in there. Yes. So, and some people have, climate control booths, that type of thing. But, just the act itself, after a while, you have to take breaks. You have to constantly hydrate. There are these little things, mouth clicks. They're just all sorts of things that you will find out about when you start trying to do it.
Yeah.
So,
that
yeah.
sounds like a lot. I like that there's LibriVox. Did I say it right?
Yeah. Actually, there are several ways people say it, but LibriVox is one of them, so that's fine.
Well, we're gonna go with that. And I do know a couple people who are interested in getting involved, and I think you're the third person that's mentioned that. So I have shared that information with them. Now, as far as that goes, and then I'll move on to something else. Now, if you sign up to or volunteer to narrate a book, can somebody go back and narrate the same book, or does it just stick with one person narrating that book?
We have, they have now, because I do a weekly poem every week for them, but now that I'm doing it professionally with the audiobooks, unfortunately I found I don't have time to do books for LibriVox now, but you can actually, I think we've got something like 10 versions maybe of Pride and Prejudice in the catalog. Okay. You can do, they call it choice of voice, because some people might start listening and they may not care for a certain voice, but they'll pick up another version of it and they really like that voice.
Right.
So there's absolutely no problem with that. There's no limit on that. You can pick a book that's, a favorite for you. It just has to be in the public domain, right, which in the U.S., generally means published before 1923.
Okay. That's good information to have. So anybody who's listening and you're interested in jumping on board and getting into a career in audiobooks, narration, that's a good place to start. Now, with your career starting, probably I would say 2011 is when there was this kind of explosion of indie authors, or when indie authors started self-publishing and things like that. So I know how things have changed a little bit with their industry. Have you seen any changes in the audiobook industry between when you started and now?
Well, about a year after I started with Iambic, ACX came on the scene. Okay. And ACX is it's an audiobook exchange program, basically. And it's owned by Audible, which is owned by Amazon. And authors can put their books up on there and look for narrators. And narrators can go there and audition for work. So that made that was a very big change. That was kind of explosive when that came on the scene, because it doesn't cost you to join. Now, there are different payment, possibilities when you do this, but that's between the author and the narrator, or the rights holder and the narrator. So I would say that's been the biggest change, because that's people who, had their books out on, ebooks and didn't go through a mainstream publisher, they can put them up if they retain the audio rights, and I assume they did. If they self-published, they can put their book up there and put some feelers out and see if they get anybody interested in narrating.
Is that one of the ways that you kind of made your big connection, was going through ACX, or have you been mostly working with publishers?
I have mostly worked, well, I've done about half of my recordings. I've got, I have a pseudonym that I also use for ACX, which I'm not going to divulge here.
Come on. You can tell me when we hang up.
Oh, yes, right. But I've got over 70 recordings on Audible, and about half of those are through ACX.
Okay.
The others are through Iambic. These are sort of go-between places that hook you up with authors, maybe with a small publisher. I even brought a small publisher, the Florida Historical Press Society. I brought a publisher from there for a book I was very interested in doing, a nonfiction book. I brought him to ACX as a vehicle to get that book on audio. Oh. And that's been a big thing with people now too, is we're reaching out to authors if they have something we're really interested in doing and it's not on audio. And ACX is basically a vehicle to get it on audio.
Right. I think ACX is a huge advantage in the audiobook industry, and as the industry continues to evolve, I'm hoping that ACX will evolve and have some other options as well, so that everybody, there's a good chunk of books out there that need to be on audio, and it's a lot of convincing that yes, you can afford to do this, and here's how. And it's just finding those little those little things to help somebody know that this is how that they can get it done. And so
right.
ACX is great. So there's my shout out to ACX. There you go, ACX. I just gave you a shout out.
Another really good one to go through if you want to do public domain work, especially, or if it's an author in another country where the laws are slightly different, is called Listen to a Book. Mm-hmm. It's listen, the number 2, abook.com. Mm-hmm. Stephen J. Well, actually, it originated with Michael Vendetti, and then Stephen J. Cohen sort of took over for Mike. And I've done a number of books through them too, and they're all public domain. In fact, I just had one that was published earlier this week. It's a short story by Dorothy Parker.
Okay.
And the nice thing about that is, this sounds terrible, because it is royalty share, but the authors are dead, so you get the entire split on that one. And of course, it's nice to be able to record something that maybe you really, really wanted to record, because it doesn't matter how many of them are available on Audible either, because if it's a classic, at some point it's going to sell.
Yes.
So
and the authors are dead, everybody.
Yes, yeah, pretty much, yeah. Well, unless you find one. Now, there are some where I know they've gotten maybe, I don't know if they've been European authors that Stephen's worked with, or I know that there have been some Australian ones. Mm-hmm. And I also belong to a group called the Online Stage, mm-hmm. and we do full cast productions. In fact, we have one that will be coming out hopefully sometime this year of a full cast production of Little Women, and I was the narrator.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So, but all the parts, of course, the girls were cast, the mother, everybody was cast, and we're working on that's in post-production right now.
I love it. And you're, again, the third person that has mentioned the Online Stage.
Actually, I love it.
And so how is it doing, working with the full cast? You guys can't really all be together. So is it similar to how someone would do a dual narration? Do you guys all record it separately and then it goes to production and they put it all together? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we do all record our lines separately. However, we upload to a cloud server, and you can listen. For instance, if you're having a dialogue with another character, if they put theirs up first, for instance, you can listen to what they've done. And I do that to kind of play off a little bit off of their, so it sounds more like a conversation.
Right.
But surprisingly, it's worked out really well. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised at how smooth it sounds. We have a wonderful person who's head of it, Dennis Daly, and he lives in Perth, Australia.
Okay.
So yeah, people,
way across
yes.
the pond.
Oh yeah, way down there. And we have people in the UK who are members, and of course all over the US and Canada. So that's been really nice to get to know other narrators that way. And in many cases, your cast for these because we all have basically samples of our work up so that they can kind of look and see, well, would you be good for this part? And then ask if you're interested. And you can also, if they just do an open call for one, you can say, okay, would I be good for this role? Because that's the other thing I've really learned is that not every book is suitable for me to do. Yeah. And sometimes you find that out the hard way, and hopefully early on before you do that too often. And then you start to find what really works better for you and for your voice and also what your interests are too, because that plays into it too. Yeah.
Right. So piggybacking off of that, so what are some things that you find are a good fit for you, whether it's genre or I guess outside of genre, I don't know what else would kind of make it either a fit or not a fit, or I guess maybe the role type. What have you found works for Lee Ann?
Well, I like the classics, which is sort of a no-brainer for most of us. I also like mysteries, and that includes basically any type of mystery, a cozy mystery, where there's humor in it usually, to like a, more of a hard-boiled mystery. I also like doing nonfiction. I like doing biographies, memoirs. I'm right now starting on a true crime book. And I have another one up that I did called Ted and Ann that was a book based partly on Ted Bundy. So, and I've done a number of biographies and memoirs. So I also like that.
And in your leisure time, so I guess you get the train and you get the helicopter.
Yes,
so
I guess.
Soon you're going to get an owl and maybe a fire truck and a dog bark. This whole podcast is just getting all the sound effects. Really, everyone, we're recording an audiobook here of a podcast, and so we had to have some sound effects in there so everybody can get the whole total ambiance of this audiobook. So I hope you enjoy this production. Oh gosh, that's so funny. One thing you said, it's fun that I think that a lot of people are really getting into cozy mysteries, and I'm pretty sure it's not a new genre, but
it's very old, like the Miss Marple stories. Those would be, and Agatha Christie did some that would be considered cozy mysteries. Generally my understanding has always been a cozy mystery is the person solving the mystery is not technically a police,
right?
A cop or a detective or whatever. So, but they're sort of doing it on their own, or maybe they're helping the police, whatever.
Yeah, like diagnostics murder. Because I like that show.
Exactly. Well, or an example right now on PBS, they've been running Grantchester on PBS on Masterpiece, and he's a vicar. The main character is a vicar, and he's sort of teamed up with a local police guy, and they solve a lot of the mysteries around there. I would consider that more of a cozy series, and those came from books, a series of books.
But the thing is, we're seeing more people writing them and putting them on audio. And it kind of revamps the fan base of maybe persons who watched those older TV shows or read those books. And now they're kind of, just, I don't know, springing out. Because again, everybody that I think I've chat with on the Featured Voice has mentioned either that they've done a cozy mystery or that's one that they want to do. I just found that pretty interesting. I need to move that up to my list of books I should listen to and kind of move like romance down to the bottom, so that I should move romance down a little bit because mystery seems to be where it's at right now. So,
well, there are people who love doing romance. They absolutely just, and they excel at it. I don't mind romance. I've done a couple, and I don't mind that if romance is part of the story, but I sort of like to have something that's, there's a story around the romance. One of my favorites, in fact, was, let's see if I can find here, Romancing Olive. It's called A Prairie Romance. But it was a romance, but at the same time, there was a lot going on with other things in the book too. The murder of Olive's brother and sister-in-law. She goes out west. This is set back in the 1800s. And she goes out west and she meets this younger man because she's sort of a spinster. And, but there's, they're having to fight a lot of other things going on too. too. So, but I've done a number of books where a romance is part of it, but it isn't. I'm trying to look and see if I've done I've done a few straight romances. A Dixie Christmas is one.
And
that I did early
under
on.
your name, Lee Ann?
Oh yes, yeah. All these are under my name.
Oh darn! I was hoping that I can get it out of you. What your that's okay. I'll get it from you some way. Maybe off this podcast because I don't want to out you or anything. But
I keep saying I'll take it to my grave.
You can't do that. Come on. What if it's a book that I really want to listen to, and you want to suggest it to me? You have to tell me what it's listed under.
Well, that's certainly true. That's certainly true.
I'm giving you my best porn voice here. Can we talk about this yesterday?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They they were erotica. That's why it was.
Oh, see, it's a perfect fit. You could tell me about it later. We'll talk about it later. This is so fun.
Oh yes.
So tell me a little bit about what you're working on now. What's new for Lee Ann? What projects does she have going on?
Well, right now I have one that's in post-production. It's getting ready to go. The author is working out the details for the book cover, and it's actually historical fiction.
Okay.
And it's called The Bed Warmer's Son. And it basically it's not a time travel book, but part of it is set back during the time of slavery, because that's what this woman, the bed warmer, that's what she did. She warmed the bed for the master, but then it's a romance. It's a romance in the background. And then it takes you to present day where her son is accused of murdering his white half brother. And so it goes back and forth. And I particularly enjoyed the backstory because the character of Jasmine, who is the slave, she's terrific. She's wonderful. It was great to be able to play her. Now that's the one that my author is working on. It's by Carol McAdoo, and she's working now on getting the cover Audible ready. I'm currently working on true crime, and it's called She is Evil.
Nice title.
Yes, well, and she is Madness and Murder in Memphis. And this is about a woman who murdered her husband, who was from another country. And basically, it's also about domestic violence in there, too. But it's definitely nonfiction. So I'm having to do a lot of research on this one because the victim was from Pakistan.
Okay.
The murderer, the woman, is from Memphis, but he was from Pakistan. So I'm having to check on the pronunciation of Arabic names. So there's a lot. Nonfiction almost always involves, because I've done a number of nonfiction books, and it almost always involves a lot of research too. The rights holder is not always the author.
Right.
So because of that, sometimes they can't help you, sometimes they can. But I always try to do it on my own first, and then if there's something I can't find, then I check back with them. But luckily, most of it you can find. Okay. Make a few phone calls. YouTube is a great resource because if it's well known at all, there's been some sort of a news item uploaded about it. You can hear a name pronounced or the name of a city or a town or a street. Those will pop up too, and you might think you know how to pronounce it, which is one thing we all talk about when we're together. Is when you get into this, you don't realize how many words, just even regular, that you have been mispronouncing your entire life.
Exactly. and you don't find that out until you narrate a book.
Sometimes you don't. And of course, sometimes there's more than one accepted pronunciation. So you have to decide what you're going to go with.
Right.
I usually try to stick with Merriam-Webster's pronunciations, but some people, and a lot of narrators do, but then some people have other favorites. So.
Yeah. Well, and so in any of these books, are you using any type of accents that are non-American? And if so, are you also using YouTube? Because I heard YouTube is one of the best resources to help with any accents and enunciations.
Well, there are also some terrific coaches out there who will work with you on specific accents. PJ Oakland is one of them. I haven't actually personally used him yet because I try to stay away from accents. But in the bed, well, now I can do it for like a few sentences, for instance, like, trying to do an English woman or something, which I had to do in The Bedwarmer's Son, because the master on this plantation, he was forced to marry for money, and he married an English woman. And so, but luckily she didn't have many lines. So I can handle that. I can handle that. But I would not try, without using a coach extensively, I would not try to do that, where you were having to, do very much of a book using another accent. I just simply try to stay. I can do Southern, Texas, Deep South, Texas, Midwest. I've done New York before, real New Yorker. But for the most part, I try to stick with, middle American. Yeah.
So no full British accented characters in a chapter for you. Just a couple of lines works.
Yeah. A couple of lines are okay. And I like to know about that ahead of time, because at least I have time. Oh, I have time to prepare. I would not attempt to do that without coaching. Some extensive coaching. And there are people who just pick it up by ear. It's amazing. There are people who can do that, but I would not trust myself to do that. So, I do enough for a few lines, because you listen enough and it's like, oh gosh, you start sounding like it, but just a few lines, it would have to be, it's like only a very minor character.
Well, at least you know what your limits are right now. Some people would probably, say, oh no, I can do it. And then it just would probably fall short. And
and when in doubt, honestly, I think it's best to not use the accent, to not try an accent. If you don't feel like you can at least maintain it for a couple of lines, like if that's all there is, for instance, I would say if in doubt, don't.
Yeah.
Because native speakers will pick up on it right away.
Yes. And they're very hard. And they'll say, that doesn't sound like, that's not Australian. That's not.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you're kind of like, well, in my head it is. And we're like, no, it's really not.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So we do have a sample of your latest book, The Bedwarmer's Son, and we're going to take a listen to that here really quickly. So we've got, Lee Ann gave us a little background about what this story is, and we've got a little sample for you. And is this one currently released, or is it getting ready to release soon?
This is the one where Carol McAdoo, the author, is working on getting the cover art ready, and then it will go into post-production.
Okay, and that's what she said. And so we're just waiting for the nice cover art. So when you pull it up on Audible, you'll see the nice small version of the book cover with Lee Ann's name on it. Hopefully narrated or read by whichever version they decide to go with. So here is Lee Ann with a nice fresh sample from The Bedwarmer's Son.
1928. He sold us right before he married that fancy lady from England, then bought us back the next spring. Will placed his hand on his grandfather's shoulder, filled his lungs with the stale jail air, then managed a smile. Pappy, no need to go that far back. Miss Parmalee didn't come all this way to hear our family history. The old man leaned back and stared across the metal table at the woman, then looked up. Son, if I don't start at the beginning, then how's Missy here going to know why that cracker had to die? Stepping around the table, Will bent close to his grandfather's ear and hunted for the balance between loud enough for the old ears and soft enough that his words wouldn't carry outside the small interrogation room. Pappy, please, don't use that word. You know these guards are all white. So? I'm half white. And you're so pale-skinned if everyone in 6 counties didn't already knows you and I was kin, you could pass for a bunny's cottontail. He grinned at the lady lawyer. Anyways, you tell me, ma'am, want to hear the whole truth, or my grandson's shorter version? No, sir, I want to hear it all. She gifted him with a beautiful smile. You start wherever you need to. Isn't that something? Getting called sir by a pretty white gal. A smart lawyer to boot, all wrapped up in one nice package. He winked. Well then, she was named after a beautiful, fragrant flower. He closed his eyes and sucked in a deep breath.
Okay, so I would really like to know where you were when you were recording this particular book because, okay, so from the sample we know that that the guy who's speaking, well, not guy, I mean it's you, but he is biracial, and and so first of all, how did you? When you read the script, was it something you automatically said, "Oh, I've got to do this book," or what kind of led you to say you wanted to do this particular project?
Well, I just found the whole idea of the story interesting, and I had checked, and it had done very well in print. The author has a very big following. She's a Christian author. And so this book would actually kind of go under two categories. It would go under historical fiction and also under Christian fiction. So that's just something for people to know ahead of time. But I just thought the story was really interesting. And like I said, I always check to see how well it's done in print. And she has a number of books out, actually. This was just one of her more recent ones. And I just really did like the idea of the story, there's no real murder mystery because we already know that the main character's son, I should say, Billy, killed his brother. And he admitted that, but it was self-defense. So it's whether or not he's going to get off at the end. Okay. Along the way, you learn the whole backstory of his mother's life, which is what I found particularly interesting.
I mean, even from just the clip of what's going on in the story, I'm one of those people that can sort of identify with just some of that because when you are a fair-skinned African-American or Black, whatever, then you get that stipulation where, you're half white or you can pass for white. And I've got a lot of family members that probably match that description. And it just was weird, like, I guess hearing you say cracker.
Oh,
so it's like
well, ironically, there's actually a term it's a Florida term. A lot of men who were sort of like cowboys in Florida years ago, they were referred to as Florida crackers. And people today who are native Floridians, I didn't actually grow up here, but I've lived here all my adult life, and they refer to themselves, "Oh, I'm a Florida cracker." So there are different meanings to that word, just like a lot of words. Right. So yeah, exactly.
It still was funny though.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of funny. The first time I listened to it, I was like, oh, he's a wonderful character. Billy, her son, is just a wonderful character. Yeah. And you really, between going back and forth in the book, you see from the time his mother becomes pregnant and he's born, and then it takes you, of course, to he's an elderly man in the beginning of the book when you hear him talking. So nice. And so in your personal life, I know you said that you enjoy classics. So I guess this type of book will fall into sort of historical romance. So is that something that you would normally kind of read just at leisure if you weren't working on the project?
I don't know because I read still, but I also listen to a lot of audiobooks because I really love hearing other narrators. I can't imagine not listening, and I learn so much from them. I've really gotten into, I still listen to a lot of nonfiction too, but I've gotten into a lot of the Norwegian type murder mysteries. It's basically started with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the whole trilogy thing. That's Simon Vance. He's like a rock star in our world. And I've listened to a number of his books, and there are so many narrators. If I started naming them, I'd leave somebody out. And so I do listen to an awful lot of police procedurals. That's what some people refer to these as too, some of the murder mysteries. But I really do like a lot of the ones that have come out of Denmark and Sweden. Some of the authors over there that I've discovered that I didn't know about before, the tattoos, the Girl and the Dragon Tattoo series. So I've been doing an awful lot of that, and also getting into some of the English mysteries too, and Irish ones. So that's been a lot of fun, and hearing a lot of different narrators too.
Well, yeah, it seems like you really got your favorite genre down pat there.
Yeah, yes, I'm so transparent.
I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that you like mysteries and what did you call it? A police.
Yeah, a lot of the ones where the police are involved and you're following a detective or whatever, like some of the other ones I've listened to, people refer to them as police procedurals. Some people would even refer to the true crime book I'm currently working on as a police procedural, because you are following the police investigation on this. This is nonfiction, the one I'm starting now. It's nonfiction, but you are following the police investigation. So that's another charm that's used.
And do you think that your love for these particular books, did that also show, I guess, because of the career that you had prior to that? You said you were a medical librarian? Yeah,
at a university medical library in the University of South Florida for over 30 years. And it's funny because I always felt that if I'd ever gone into medicine, pathology interested me the most. One, well, A, you can't hurt anyone. Yeah. For obvious reasons, and B, because it is really interesting. I mean, the body has a lot to tell you after they're gone, and so I've always found that interesting. It's a little ghoulish, but not really. But I do also listen to an awful lot of. I just finished listening to a biography, of the Mitford sisters. They were 6 English sisters, and they led very colorful lives. And I just listened to a recording of their lives, and that was really interesting because I sort of knew about them, but not that much. And of course, that was narrated by a British narrator. Okay. So I do an awful lot of nonfiction still too, as far as listening. My preference listening.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I figure if you are spending a lot of time in the types of books that you're narrating in your downtime, you probably just want to have something a little different. Actually, it's not even that different, but
I know.
I think in your formal life, you probably were like a female Columbo, or you were what's the lady from Murder, She Wrote?
I never actually. It's funny. I never actually watched that. I like to think of myself more as prime suspect, the Helen Mirren character, Jane Tennyson, she's actually a detective. But yeah, you're on the right track.
Well, see, that's because you went back to British TV. So really, are you a total BBC person when you watch TV?
Okay. Yes, I am. I'm a fiend.
She doesn't watch American TV.
I watch Florida, some.
And she likes the BBC channel and maybe PBS. And,
yeah, we watch a lot of PBS and I watch a lot of Scottish shows, and you can pick these up off Netflix too, places like that. So, and I have to say the Brits are extremely good at producing these series. It's not that we aren't good at them. I don't mean that, but they're awfully good at it.
They're awfully good at it, which means we're not as good. They're just better. that's just one person's opinion. So. We'll keep that between you and I. We won't tell anybody. That's right.
Don't tell anyone.
All right. Okay. So we know that the Bedwarmer's Son is coming out soon. So everybody be sure that you are on the lookout for the release for that. If it releases, if I find out when it's released, of course, we will share it on the Audio Flow page on Facebook as well as Twitter. So, make sure that you are following Lee Ann. Lee Ann, how can they find you on social media?
Okay, social media, it's funny. They can follow me on social media, but I don't actually, and I need to do this, but it's like one more thing. I need to do a separate Facebook page. Right now, the only one I have up is a personal page. They can follow me, though, on Twitter. They can go to my website, leannhowlett.com, and they can follow me that way. They can get because I automatically list there when I have a new book out.
Okay.
I automatically post it there. I tweet about it. Trying to think of where else I also put it up. You can follow me on SoundCloud.
Okay.
And you can find all of that. The easiest way is just to go to my website,
Okay.
leannhowlett.com, because I tell you all the places there where you can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on SoundCloud, and I put clips up for people to listen to, and it'll take you to Audible if you think you're interested, for purchase. So that's really the best way to follow me.
And Lee Ann's name is Lee, like Lee, and then Ann, Ann. So
Right.
don't try to be fancy with it and do
Yeah.
Lea and then do Anne. No, it's Lee Ann Howlett, Howlett. So
Yeah.
I've spelled it out for you guys. There's no way that you should not be able to find it. Oh, wait, let me give you the rest. https:// www.leannhowlett.com. There you go.
Yeah, I think you actually don't even need the www. You can actually just put into your browser leannhowlett.com and it'll pull me up.
Well, of course, but I want to make sure for those fancy people whose computer starts with HTTPS to let you know that it's secured, then you can type in the H. But yes, it will redirect to Lee Ann Howlett. Just make sure you spell her name correctly so that you can find her. If you can't find her, find us and we'll connect you to her. How's that? How's that, Lee Ann?
That should work. I'm just making sure. Yeah, it automatically.
Did you just test it out?
Yes, I did test it, and I put the www in, and it automatically just knocks that out and takes you to leannhowlett.com. So that's fine.
Good. Well, good. That's how we find you. And so you're working today in your booth, and you're in Florida, and you mentioned that you could not have a fan. So how are you staying cool? How are you staying cool in your studio?
I try to cool it down before I go in there, like open up the door and everything, and pull back all the sound absorption. So, pull everything back and try to get it cooled down. And of course, I keep water handy, a huge thing of just room temperature water with a little lemon in it. Mm-hmm. I also use a mouth spray called Entertainer's Secret. It's pretty good for mouth clicking. Mm-hmm. I also use these pectin lollipops. They also help with that. You can get them usually at drugstores. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I use in there. A lot of people swear by, eating green apple slices, and I've tried those, but I found that this works better for me. So
well, I like the
everybody
lollipop thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how you prevent your porn voice?
Well, I prevent my porn voice by not recording in the morning.
Well, what about like now it's afternoon and you hear my voice? So, I mean, I'd have to suck on a lot of lollipops to prevent.
Well, you have your natural voice too, and I have a lower voice for a woman. Mm-hmm. So I have to heighten my voice when I do children, or if I'm doing a younger woman, I try to lighten it a little bit. But I have a naturally deeper voice for a woman. So that's, you kind of have to work with that too. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to invest in some of those lollipops or suckers or whatever you want to call them and get me some throat spray. And otherwise, I'll just record the rest of my podcast like I'm doing a 1-900 call me video. Yes, I'm taking callers now. No.
Oh, that sounded really sexy.
Get it all in now, people. Tomorrow I'll sound like a frog again. So, well, Lee Ann, thank you so much for joining me this week on The Featured Voice. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome, and we look forward to all of the next projects that you're working on, and we will be following you. Well, I'm connected with you on your Facebook page, but also on Twitter, and I will be sure to add you to SoundCloud, which is under your full name too, correct?
No, actually, it's not. That's why I was saying the best thing to do is to go to my
website.
Go to my website, because when I first opened a SoundCloud account and also Twitter, I wasn't actually advertising my stuff that way. So I just did what they suggested, which wasn't very smart, but learn as you go. So.
Yeah, at least with Twitter, though, you can change it. So you can
absolutely.
You can definitely keep that same account and change your username whenever you feel like it.
Yes, and I need to get around to doing a Facebook page. I've got so many friends who are now just doing it themselves because everybody seems to want to go to Facebook. So,
Yes,
but
Facebook
if they do go to my homepage, you pretty much can find, because I keep a blog too, and you can find
Okay.
that there also. Yeah.
Oh, good, good. Well, we'll be following your blog and everything. All things Lee Ann, www.leannhowlett.com. That's the way to go, people. So thank you for joining us for the featured voice. We're here in week 10. Like I said, we have 2 more weeks to go, and we'll be ending season 1 of the featured voice. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at The Audio Flow and also on Twitter at _audio_flow and Instagram at The Audio Flow. We like to keep consistency here so that you can find us everywhere under that same name. Also, a big thank you to my producer and editor, Danielle, over at Firefly Productions. I'm starting to give her shout outs now, and I hadn't done that before, but she just recently connected with me to make sure all of our audios and podcasts sound fantastic, and she's doing a great job. And also, you can find this series and other series from us on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn. So any other platform you want to find us, be sure you do that. Until next time, this is Jacques with the featured voice and the audio flow. Have a great week.